What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm LotusAsakura, the one who never knows best. And in today's video, I kind of want to talk to you guys and give a little bit of a perspective or some of my thoughts on Evo now that it has officially passed. We're a few days removed from the big event. I have a viewer by the name of Van, who a lot of you guys should be familiar with. If you're not, let me know that you won't be to the streams, which, by the way, link is always in the description down below. Twitch.tv/LotusAsakura. You can always find me there. I'm going to try to start streaming, multi-streaming again, both on Twitch and YouTube. I stopped because I was having some complications whenever I would try to record while doing that. I'm looking into resolving that and then going back to multi-streaming. But for the time being, the streams are back to being Twitch exclusive, which you've probably realized by now. Anyway, Van asked me, do I have any thoughts on Evo? And at first I said, not really, because I wasn't at the event. So there's not really too much that I haven't spoken on. But then I thought about it a little bit more. It's like, actually, I kind of want to talk about Tekken specifically. And I'm here live on my Twitch stream, obviously. You guys can't see it, but the chat, they're all saying hello. Actually, do I have it on screen? Yeah, there you go. They're all saying hello. Hooray. I know it's a little bit ugly, so we're not going to leave it there. But I want to talk about Tekken specifically because this was Tekken 8's first time at Evo, which by itself is obviously very, very exciting. I want to say there was, close to 5,000 entrants. There was over 4,000 players in the Tekken 8 bracket alone. This was one of the biggest Evos of all time in general. There was over 10,000 players, which is slightly lower than like the 11,000 that we had last year when Street Fighter 6 had over 7,000 people. But this event was huge and it was very exciting. I had a great time watching the event, everything from pools all up to round 2, 3, 4, top 24, top 6. It was all great. However, so basically after giving it some thought, I kind of came to the conclusion that if I'm being honest with myself and with you guys, Tekken 8's top 6 was not as exciting as it could have been. And I'd keep it a buck. It's really because of Dragunov. Okay. Now here's the thing. I'm not normally somebody who just complains or whines about, oh, this bracket is filled with top tier characters. In fact, quite the opposite. I am one of the people who strongly believes that when you're one of the absolute best players in the world, when you're competing, you don't even have to be the best. When you're somebody who's just competing and trying to win, you should pick the character that gives you the best chance of doing so. But especially when you're one of the best in the world, especially when this is your livelihood or what you do for a living, or when you have sponsors on the line and obviously, fans supporting you and people who believe in you, everything, like, you should pick the best characters in the game. So when I say what I'm saying and what I'm about to say, I don't want anyone to think that I'm attacking any players or criticizing them for their choice in character. But I am somebody who is of the personal opinion that Dragunov, in general, regardless of his strength or where his ranking is on the tier list, is a very boring, bland, and uninteresting character. I don't find him fun to play. I don't find him fun to watch. Not my taste, right? Obviously, there are some Dragunov fans out there. Nobi himself, high-level Dragunov player, has been for a very long time. You know what I mean? Maybe Atif and Ulsan weren't always Dragunov players, but again, no shade to them. They should pick those characters. But I don't think I'm alone in feeling as though that Dragunov is a very boring character. And well, top 6 had 3 Dragunovs, and second and third place went to Dragunov players. Now, first place was won by Arslan, who plays Nina, which, but at least it made for some variety. I can't believe, by the way, we had so many people cheering for Nina, but it is what it is. It's insane to me that Arslan is Arslan. So it's great. He's a lot of people's hero. He's the GOAT, the guy, you know what I'm saying? I might even be at this point giving him the throne and saying he's the greatest Tekken player of all time and taking that title from me, because he's figured it out already in Tekken 8 and is continuing to dominate and pick up right where he left off in 7. That's neither here nor there. But Nina is not a character who's particularly popular or even well liked. And yet he's the underdog, or like the savior, just saving us from all the Dragunovs. And I kind of want to get into this conversation a little bit. Not only that, because I know how I feel, and I know that the general public, or like the casual opinion, is that they want to see character variety. You know what I mean? Whether it's Dragunov or anyone else, having 3 of the same character in top 6 was probably not as hype or exciting for some people that it could be. Now, that being said, again, because I always feel the need to like make these disclaimers, or like cover my bases and whatnot when I'm having these conversations. I enjoyed the tournament. Start to finish, I enjoyed the event. High level Tekken is high level Tekken. Even if it's a Dragunov mirror match or Nina versus Dragunov, even if I'm not a fan of the characters, I'm a fan of the play and the players. You know what I mean? So I don't want that to get misconstrued. However, again, being honest with myself and with you guys, it's like, yeah, it's a little bit more exciting. It's a little bit more enjoyable when you're seeing a different variety of characters. Now, of course, I have my own biases and my own preferences. If it had been 3 Quadongs or 3 Reynas or like 3 Bryans, yeah, I would have liked that more because I like those characters more. It simply is what it is. I'm sure some of you guys feel the same way about the characters that you like. And my issue is that not with the most recent patch with Lydia, who I'm planning on playing here today, and you guys will see some videos on the channel soon, but the patch before, the last balance patch, they basically came out and said that they're not planning on doing any more real balance adjustments to the game. There's not really going to be any buffs or nerfs for characters. It will be updates as far as content goes, and then like bug fixes, patching glitches, things like that. And I can't help but feel as though that could potentially be a detriment to the game, because, you know, it's funny, I said this on Twitter, I said this on stream, and I even said it in like the little meme tier list I made the other day about who are the biggest glue eater characters, which was just a few days before Evo. In that video, I said Dragunov is still the best character in the game. I was like, yeah, are y'all gonna think I'm crazy? Y'all gonna think I'm tripping if I say I think Dragunov is still the best character in the game? And after Evo, because it's not like oh, they were just it's not like just top 6 had Dragunovs. Dragunov was littered all throughout the event and all throughout top 6, top 24, top 40. You know what I mean? It was a very, very not problematic. Well, kind of, maybe, potentially, you know, debatable, but prominent character. And it kind of reminds me, it makes me think of Street Fighter 6, where they had basically one patch that they had to play on with no real changes or anything like that. Or Dragon Ball FighterZ in season 2, where we had one patch for the entire year and GT Goku was running rampant. It was on every team. And I would hate to see this game get to a point where every top 6 or top 8, because as it normally is outside of Evo, where every top 8 is just like 3, 4, 5 Dragunovs. You know what I mean? Nobody really wants to see that. We had that one year with Leroy Japan where Leroy was all over top 8. And if the general consensus is that Dragunov is still comfortably number 1 and is head and shoulders above pretty much every other character, which it feels like he still is even after all the nerfs, that's what people are going to do. They're going to pick that character because it gives them the best chance of winning. And I don't blame them, you know, I would blame the game. And I just wonder how like strict they are, or like how anal they're going to be about like, no, we said no more balance patches, we said no more buffs and nerfs for the rest of the season. Like how much are they going to stick to that word? Because I'm not necessarily saying Dragunov needs to be nerfed some more, but I'm kind of saying it, or maybe some other characters need to be brought up. I know that some people are always like, some people still hold on to the philosophy of, you know, don't nerf characters, just buff everyone else, just make everyone else stronger. And I don't have an issue with the overall character power in a game being high, but the problem I have with that philosophy in this context is that I think Tekken 8 is already a game with pretty high character power. I think modern fighting games are already using that philosophy where it's not comparable to like games from 10, 15, 20 years ago where you have some characters who are like literally unplayable at a super high level. You know what I mean? It's like, no, this character's really, really garbage, as opposed to having like an A through F tier or like a S through F tier. I would say like most modern fighting games are like their lowest tier is like a B tier more often than not. You know what I mean? I think that is an intentional design choice that developers are making these days, where like even the worst characters in the game within the context of the game might be weaker than others, but are generally speaking a pretty solid character. Tekken 8 is a game where you can win with any character. A lot of people still consider the Bears, or at least Panda, the worst character in the game, like Kuma, one of the worst characters in the game. Rangchu has done very, very well. No matter who you think is the worst character in the game right now, we've seen them in a top 8. I'm pretty certain we've seen every character, everything from Zafina to Claudio to Shaheen to Hwarong. Devil Jin might be the only one I don't remember seeing in a top 8, but I've seen him decently high. I know Kudance has been having his struggles, whatever, but I've seen him make, you know, a decent little runs or whatever. I can't remember off the top of my head if we've seen Devil Jin in a top 8. He might be the one, but like almost every character in the game we've seen in a top 8 at this point. And so I feel like it's a very well-rounded game. But with that being said, top tiers will be top tiers. And obviously, no matter what you do, people are going to gravitate toward the characters that are the strongest. So whether it's Dragunov or Fang or Alyssa or Nina, well, actually, that's not necessarily the case in Tekken always, because there are some characters who are very, very good that aren't getting picked as much right now, like in Nina, outside of like Arslan Jad and Infested and Speed Kicks, which is a decent amount. That's 4 players. That's actually a lot. I like Alyssa. Like Alyssa, I think is extremely powerful in this game, and most people have that opinion. And who's playing her right now other than like Chanel and Cuddlecore? I guess there's Obscure, right? Who might be a slightly obscure name to some of you guys, unless you've been around for a minute. But yeah, I think we've already seen the proof in the pudding where players are picking Dragunov, and they're not afraid to do that in order to win. And I just think it would kind of be a shame to see that. And I think if you just like, oh, well, we'll keep Dragunov the same and just keep buffing other characters, there are characters in this game who could definitely use some buffs. Well, maybe didn't deserve the nerfs that he got. Elvin could use some help. Maybe Zafina still needs a little bit more. I don't know. She still seems pretty unpopular. But I think you'll start to get to the point where it's like risk is or reward's going to outweigh risk, even though I think it kind of already does in a lot of capacities in this game for a lot of characters and a lot of tools. And I mean, you get to a point where like character power becomes too high and the game becomes a little bit silly, a little bit ugly in terms of like lots of flailing, super high reward off low risk stuff. And again, I always reference Dragon Ball FighterZ because that's obviously the game that most of you guys know me for, and the game that I built most of my following off of, and a game that I have a lot of experience with. I think part of the problem right now in DBFZ is that character power might be a little bit too high. It's not that every character shouldn't be good. I'm not saying every character can't be good or playable, but it's just like you just have so many characters, just have so many ridiculous tools, and it's like, yo, when is enough? And I feel like right now in Tekken 8, obviously you want to keep things fresh. So as the game progresses, you want to update things, maybe add new moves, new mechanics, or like, you know, make some changes just for the sake of shaking things up. But generally speaking, I think the game power-wise is in a pretty good spot. And you might just need to knock Dragunov and a couple other characters down, just another peg or two, and then everything's great. I think the system changes and the mechanics that they made are really, really good. I love the change to Heat Burst. I love that a lot. I like that there's more counterplay to that stuff. That was obviously something that I was very vocal about in some of my earlier videos, criticizing the game or talking about the things I wanted to see changed. And so I like where the game is at from a general standpoint. But I do think that Evo Top 6 was kind of dragged down a little bit, no pun intended, by the fact that Dragunov was so prominent. And no matter what you do, like I said earlier, top tiers are going to be top tiers. The best players are going to pick the best characters more often than not. In Tekken, it's not as common as it is in, like, let's say like Mortal Kombat, for example, where everybody just plays like every character and whoever's the best, they all just jump on their new character. There's a little bit, usually there's a little bit more loyalty in Tekken, but Tekken is no stranger either to people like jumping from character to character. Some of our best players, Nee, Arslan, are known for playing multiple characters and for counterpicking and picking the top tiers. You know what I mean? But they're the very best at doing it. Then you have other players like Kwitz, who always plays Hwoarang. He's probably gonna be playing Lydia, yeah, or like Edge, who was a Hwoarang loyalist. Well, he played Shaheen actually in bracket. But you know, a lot of people in this game have a character that they are known for, and 9 times out of 10, and in some cases 10 times out of 10, they're picking that character. I don't want to see this game get to a point where it's just like 4 or 5 Dragunovs every single top 8. You know what I mean? And everyone's just like on Twitter just moaning about the character, and I'd be part of that problem as well. And yeah, so again, no disputing the level of play. All the respect in the world to Atif, to Ulsan, to Nobi. Not mad at those guys at all. I think they're incredible players who are very skilled and talented, but I do think Evo probably would have been more exciting if there was more variety in the character selection. Regardless of how you feel about Dragunov, I think most people would probably agree with that. That's kind of like all I really wanted to say in this video. I yapped about that a little bit more than I thought. I ended up hitting the record button on this because I got asked, you know, my thoughts on Evo in the chat. And I was like, you know, I feel like when I answer this question, I'm going to start yapping, so I should probably record this. And yeah, but what do you guys think? How do you guys feel? Is character variety something that you care about at all? It's not like one of my priorities, but I can't say that it doesn't play a factor at all in my enjoyment from a spectator standpoint. Obviously, the level of play is the most important. But character choice plays a large role in how hype I get seeing a match. I mean, obviously, my favorite match of the entire weekend was seeing Kwitz versus Speed Kicks because it was the Hwoarang mirror match. I'm a Hwoarang player. That's my main. That's my favorite character. So yeah, that's the match I enjoyed the most. People enjoy watching characters that they also play or just enjoy seeing. And so, you know, it is what it is. I'm sure if you're a huge Dragunov fan, you were going crazy over it. But you know what I mean? I don't imagine that's the majority of people out there. And in some cases, obviously people, regardless of if they like the character or not, they just want to see variety. But is that something that matters to you or not? How did you feel about Evo Top 6? And how do you feel about the idea that we're going to be stuck? And maybe stuck is too much of a negative connotation, but we are kind of stuck with this version of the game until next season, which is basically going to be next year in January or February. Yeah, who knows how things will go. And obviously, with one of the benefits of being on one patch for so long is that people have way more time to experiment, figure the game out, lab their character or whatever. There's some people who are they're just going to bandwagon to whatever. You have other people who are like, no, there's all this time to like now study this game, stick to this character, figure this out, solve things, like actually problem solve and lab and train. And you might realize that certain characters are way stronger than you thought and other characters are way weaker than you thought. And that's why you never want to overpatch things and do too much too soon, because you know, there's all this like hidden treasure that you haven't found yet, and that you'll never find if you overpatch the game, which we saw in season 1 of BBFZ. But I do think there's such a thing as too little or like too infrequent, and I think like one patch for the whole year, which granted it's not an entire year because the patches came in June, and it's, you know, it's gonna be a long time, but it's not a whole year. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I enjoyed Tekken 8 top 6 a lot, not as much as I probably could have if there were characters other than Dragunov in there, but that's just me. Honestly, I think the most I got excited through that entire top 6 was when Ulsan brought up the Reina. But again, that's part of my bias coming into play. But like I said, you guys let me know. I'm rambling at this point. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can stay tuned for all this content that I'm bringing you. And with all that being said, that's pretty much all I have for today. And remember, nothing can happen until you swing the bat. Later.